Underneath number 2, you should have your squiggly line. Make sure you're in part 2, not part 1. And in bigger letters, write wonder, part 2, chapters 5 through 8, and then today's date, October 27th, 2020. And then to the left of the pink line, we're going to start with number 3. So at the top, you should have your squiggly line. I'm sorry, not at the top. Underneath number 2 from yesterday, you should have your squiggly line. Then you need to write wonder, the title of today's vocab, wonder, part 2, chapters 5 through 8, and then today's date, October 27th, 2020. Ethan, these will be your words today. We only have one. So, number 3 is the word meticulously. Meticulously. M-E-T-I-C-U-L-O-U-S-L-Y. Yes. M-E-T-I-C-U-L-O-U-S-L-Y. Meticulously. Make sure that when you're copying, every single letter is copied exactly the same. The size, is it capital, is it lowercase? The shape, make sure your P's, make sure that your Y's, the tail goes under the line. Make sure your L's and your T are taller than the rest of your letters. Don't forget to dot your I. Meticulously. M-E-T-I-C-U-L-O-U-S-L-Y. Again, remember your Y's, the tail goes below the line. The L's and the T go to the top of the line. The rest of your letters only take up half of the line. And don't forget to dot your I. Make sure none of these letters are capital. So look right now, make sure none of these letters are capital. Meticulously is an adverb. None of these letters are capital either. Make sure your D and your B are facing the right direction. Make sure they are not capital. Make sure they are tall and go all the way to the top of the line. While the A, V, E, and R only take up half of the line. Meticulously is an adverb. What is an adverb? Who remembers what an adverb is? Victoria. It describes a verb. An adverb is a describing word like an adjective, but instead of describing a noun like an adjective, an adverb describes a verb, how something is happening. So it is an adverb. Make sure none of your letters in adverb are capital. Okay, it means that something is being done. Something is being done very carefully or precisely. Precisely means precise is exact. So precisely is an adverb. That means you're doing something exactly the way it needs to be done. Yes?
How do you spell precisely?
Precisely is spelled P-R-E-C-I-S-E-L-Y. Was that your question too, Erin? So make sure that all of your letters match mine. There are no capitals in this whole definition. There are no capitals. Make sure all of your Y's and G's go below, the tail goes below the line. Make sure all tall letters like T, H, B, D, F, and L's are tall. Oh, make sure your P's, sorry, I forgot about P's. Make sure your P's, the tail goes below the line. Make sure your tall letters, T, H, B, D, F, and L, all go to the top of the line. Make sure the rest of your letters only take up half of the line. Make sure all I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Make sure you have no capitals in this entire definition. Here's the word in context. He meticulously tries to get every hair in place. So that means he's trying to get his hair to look a certain way, but he's doing it very carefully or precisely so it looks exactly the way he wants it to. So do you think his hair is going to end up looking neat or messy if he's doing it meticulously? Zadie? Probably neat. If you're doing something very carefully or precisely, you're doing it neatly. Yes?
A weird thing is when B's and D's are capitalized, they go the same way, but when they're lowercase, they go different ways.
That is weird. Okay. Everybody good on vocabulary? Meticulously. Make sure all letters, none are capital. Make sure they are all lowercase. Make sure all tall letters go all the way to the top. Make sure all letters with a tail go down below the line. Make sure that the rest of the letters only take up half of the line. Make sure all I's are dotted and T's are crossed. If you had J's, I would say also make sure your J's are dotted, but we don't have any J's. Okay. Once you're done, go ahead and put your vocab notebook away. Get in your good listening position. That means you're sitting up straight. Your back is all the way back against your chair. Your chair is pushed in so that your chest just barely touches the top of your desk. Your legs are in front of your chair, under your desk. Pencils are off desks. Hands are on your desk, on your book once you open it. Ready to listen. Heads are up. And you are ready to follow along. Okay, sitting up straight. Michaela, you need to scoot in. Sit up straight. Open to page 91. Make sure that you are following along with your finger. Pay attention. Okay, so we are on page 91. Make sure that you are following along so that when you get to, Carla, don't worry about what's on the screen. Worry about your book. Make sure you're following along, because when you get to the comprehension questions, you should be able to remember most of what you need. You should only need to open your book to maybe get a correct spelling of a character's name or to get a small detail that you can't quite remember. But most of these questions should be able to be done from remembering what was read. So make sure you're following along with your finger. Don't worry about, girls at home, don't worry about what's on the screen. Worry about following along. Try to ignore what's going on around you. Okay, chapter 5, high school. What I always loved most about middle school was that it was separate and different from home. I could go there and be Olivia Pullman, not Via, which is my name at home. Via was what they called me in elementary school, too. Back then, everyone knew all about us, of course. Mom used to pick me up after school, and August was always in the stroller. There weren't a lot of people who were equipped to babysit for Augie, so Mom and Dad brought him to all my class plays and concerts and recitals, all the school functions, the bake sales, and the book fairs. My friends knew him. My friends' parents knew him. My teachers knew him. The janitor knew him. "Hey, how you doing, Augie?" he'd always say, and give August a high five. August was something of a fixture at PS 22. But in middle school, a lot of people didn't know about August. My old friends did, of course, but my new friends didn't. Or if they knew, it wasn't necessarily the first thing they knew about me. Maybe it was the second or the third thing they'd hear about me. Olivia? Yeah, she's nice. Did you hear she has a brother who's deformed? I always hated that word, but I knew it was how people described Augie. And I knew those kinds of conversations probably happened all the time out of earshot, every time I left the room at a party or bumped into groups of friends at the pizza place. And that's okay. I'm always going to be the sister of a kid with a birth defect. That's not the issue. I just don't always want to be defined that way. The best thing about high school is that hardly anybody knows me at all, except Miranda and Ella, of course. And they know not to go around talking about it. Miranda, Ella, and I have known each other since the first grade. What's so nice is we never have to explain things to one another. When I decided I wanted them to call me Olivia instead of Via, they got it without my having to explain. They've known August since he was a little baby. When we were little, our favorite thing to do was play dress up with Augie. Load him up with feather boas and big hats and Hannah Montana wigs. He used to love it, of course, and we thought he was adorably cute in his own way. Ella said he reminded her of E.T. She didn't say this to be mean, of course, though maybe it was a little bit mean. The truth is, there's a scene in the movie when Drew Barrymore dresses E.T. in a blonde wig, and that was a ringer for Augie in our Miley Cyrus heyday. Throughout middle school, Miranda, Ella, and I were pretty much our own little group, somewhere between super popular and well-liked. Not brainy, not jocks, not rich, not druggies, not mean, not goody-goody, not huge, not flat. I don't know if the three of us found each other because we were so alike in so many ways, or that because we found each other, we've become so alike in so many ways. We were so happy when we all got into Faulkner High School. It was such a long shot that all three of us would be accepted, especially when almost no one else from our middle school was. I remember how we screamed into our phones the day we got our acceptance letters. This is why I haven't understood what's been going on with us lately, now that we're actually in high school. It's nothing like how I thought it would be. Chapter 6, Major Tom. Out of the three of us, Miranda had always been the sweetest to August, hugging him and playing with him long after Ella and I had moved on to playing something else. Even as we got older, Miranda always made sure to try to include August in our conversations. Ask him how he was doing, talk to him about Avatar or Star Wars or Bone or something she knew he liked. It was Miranda who had given Augie the astronaut helmet he wore practically every day of the year when he was 5 or 6. She would call him Major Tom, and they would sing Space Oddity by David Bowie together. It was their little thing. They knew all the words and would blast it on the iPod and sing the song out loud. Since Miranda's always been really good about calling us as soon as she got home from summer camp, I was a little surprised when I didn't hear from her. I even texted her and she didn't reply. I figured maybe she had ended up staying in the camp longer, now that she was a counselor. Maybe she met a cute guy. Then I realized from her Facebook wall that she'd actually been home for a full 2 weeks. So I sent her an IM and we chatted online a bit, but she didn't give me a reason for not calling, which I thought was bizarre. Miranda had always been a little flaky, so I figured that's all it was. We made plans to meet downtown, but when I had to cancel because we were driving out to visit Tata and Papa for the weekend. Oh, but then I had to cancel because we were driving out to visit Tata and Papa for the weekend. So I ended up not seeing either Miranda or Ella until the first day of school. And I have to admit, I was shocked. Miranda looked so different. Her hair was cut in this super cute bob that she dyed bright pink, of all things, and she was wearing a striped tube top that A, seemed way inappropriate for school, and B, was totally not her usual style. Miranda had always been such a prude about clothes, and here she was, all pink-haired and tube-topped. But it wasn't just the way she looked that was different. She was acting differently, too. I can't say she wasn't nice, because she was, but she seemed kind of distant, like I was a casual friend. It was the weirdest thing in the world. At lunch, the three of us sat together like we always used to, but the dynamics had shifted. It was obvious to me that Ella and Miranda had gotten together a few times during the summer without me, though they never actually said that. I pretended not to be at all upset while we talked, though I could feel my face getting hot, my smile being fake. Although Ella wasn't as over the top as Miranda, I noticed a change in her usual style too. It's like they had talked to each other beforehand about redoing their image at the new school, but hadn't bothered to clue me in. I admit, I had always thought I was above this kind of typical teenage pettiness, but I felt a lump in my throat throughout lunch. My voice quivered as I said, "See you later," when the bell rang. Make sure you're following along with your finger. Chapter 7, After School. Make sure you're following along with your finger. I see a lot of people not following along with their finger. It will help. Chapter 7, After School. I hear we're driving you home today. It was Miranda in 8th period. She had just sat down at the desk right behind me. I had forgotten that Mom had called Miranda's mother the night before to ask if she could drive me home from school. "You don't have to," I answered instinctively, casually. "My mom can pick me up." I thought she had to pick Augie up or something. It turns out she can pick me up afterward. She just texted me, not a problem. Oh, okay. Thanks. It was all a lie on my part, but I couldn't see sitting in a car with a new Miranda. After school, I ducked into a restroom to avoid bumping into Miranda's mother outside. Half an hour later, I walked out of the school, ran the 3 blocks to the bus stop, hopped on the M86 to Central Park West, and took the subway home. "Hey there, sweetie," Mom said the moment I stepped through the front door. "How was your first day? I was starting to wonder where you guys were." "We stopped for pizza." Incredible how easily a lie can slip through your lips. "Is Miranda not with you?" She seemed surprised that Miranda wasn't right behind me. "She went straight home. We have a lot of homework." "On your first day?" "Yes, on our first day," I yelled, which completely surprised Mom. But before she could say anything, I said, "School was fine. It's really big, though. The kids seem nice." I wanted to give her enough information so she wouldn't feel the need to ask me more. "How was Augie's first day of school?" Mom hesitated, her eyebrows still high up on her forehead from when I'd snapped at her a second earlier. "Okay," she said slowly, like she was letting out a breath. "What do you mean, okay?" I said. "Was it good or bad?" "He said it was good." "So why do you think it wasn't good?" "I didn't say it wasn't good. Geez, Via, what's up with you?" "Just forget I asked anything at all," I answered, and stormed dramatically into Augie's room and slammed the door. He was on his PlayStation and didn't even look up. I hated how zombified his video games made him. "Carla, please put that away. You need to be following along with your finger." "So, how was school?" I said, scooching Daisy over so I could sit on his bed next to him. "Fine," he answered, still not looking up from his game. "Augie, I'm talking to you." I pulled the PlayStation out of his hands. "Hey!" he said angrily. "How was school?" "I said fine," he yelled back, grabbing the PlayStation back from me. "Were people nice to you?" "Yes." "No one was mean?" He put the PlayStation down and looked up at me as if I had just asked the dumbest question in the world. "Why would people be mean?" he said. It was the first time in his life that I had heard him be sarcastic like that. I didn't think he had it in him. Chapter 8. The Padawan Bites the Dust. Make sure you're sitting up straight and following along with your finger. I'm not sure at what point that night Augie had cut off his Padawan braid, or why that made me really mad. I'd always found his obsession with everything Star Wars kind of geeky, and that braid in the back of his hair with its little beads was just awful. But he'd always been so proud of it, of how long it took him to grow it, of how he had chosen the beads himself in a craft store in Soho. He and Christopher, his best friend, used to play with lightsabers and Star Wars stuff whenever they got together, and they had both started growing their braids at the same time. When August cut his braid off that night, without an explanation, without telling me beforehand, which was surprising, or even calling Christopher, I was just so upset I couldn't even explain why. I've seen Augie brushing his hair in the bathroom mirror. He meticulously tries to get every hair in place. He tilts his head to look at himself from different angles, like there's some magic perspective inside the mirror that could change the dimensions of his face. Mom knocked on my door after dinner. She looked drained, and I realized that between me and Augie, today had been a tough day for her too. "So, you want to tell me what's up?" she asked nicely, softly. "Not now, okay?" I answered. I was reading. I was tired. Maybe later I'd be up to telling her about Miranda, but not now. "I'll check in before you go to bed," she said, and then she came over and kissed me on the top of my head. "Can Daisy sleep with me tonight?" "Sure, I'll bring her in later." "Don't forget to come back," I said as she left. "I promise." But she didn't come back that night. Dad did. He told me Augie had had a bad first day and Mom was helping him through it. He asked me how my day had gone, and I told him fine. He said he didn't believe me for a second, and I told him Miranda and Ella were acting like jerks. I didn't mention how I took the subway home by myself, though. He said nothing. He said nothing tests friendships like high school, and then proceeded to poke fun at the fact that I was reading War and Peace. Not real fun, of course, since I'd heard him brag to people that he had a 15-year-old who is reading Tolstoy. But he liked to rib me about where I was in the book, in a war part or in a peace part, and if there was anything in there about Napoleon's days as a hip-hop dancer. It was silly stuff, but Dad always managed to make everyone laugh, and sometimes that's all you need to feel better. "Don't be mad at Mom," he said as he bent down to give me a goodnight kiss. "You know how much she worries about Augie." "I know," I acknowledged. "Want the light on or off? It's getting kind of late," he said, pausing by the light switch at the door. "Can you bring Daisy in first?" 2 seconds later, he came back with Daisy dangling in his arms, and he laid her down next to me on the bed. "Good night, sweetheart," he said, kissing my forehead. He kissed Daisy on her forehead, too. "Good night, girlie. Sweet dreams." Okay. Who heard meticulously? Ethan. Where'd you hear it? I can't hear you.
When he tried to get every hair in
He tried to get every hair in place. Well, what was he doing?
brushing his hair.
He was brushing his hair. So he was brushing his hair, trying to get everything in place. What was happening around that time that Via was talking about? Victoria?
I think they were getting ready for school.
Okay,
Or they were going to bed.
but what was the really big thing that Via was talking about when she talked about how meticulous he was with his hair? Cullen?
When Augie cut off his braid.
When he cut off his braid. Very good. So she was very surprised because he had acted so proud of it. If you do something meticulously, do you think you're going to end up being proud of it? Yeah. So he was so proud of the braid, getting every hair in place, and now here he goes cutting it off. Okay,